planet through a new satanic world order with usually interceptions and violence, there's no doubt that there are very, very violent war against Islam is taking place. And that is the example in green for Italy. And then you can find also in red some of the Spanish examples we have here. If you support Israel in any way, shape or form, I do not respect you, period, end of conversation. As you can see, most of these examples are part of foreign politics, and I will explain something about that later as well. But it was little found inside the country by itself or by the society. So it was good to compare the data from Spain and Italy together, because we can put all that together in foreign politics. I'd like to continue to speak about Germany and France. As you can see, that one, or this sign you find, the graphic you find also in the long part of the report. We separated all of the content into different themes, right? So we watched all of them, the Excel files we wrote. We watched every part of the content, and we made subtitles. Okay, what is it about? And then we tried to separate everything from each other to see what can we explain, or what are the results of our content. And that in Germany and France is a bit different than in the other one. We have one topic that's here on the top. It says the state and Muslims. It describes the situation of the radical content, or the authors of the radical content, how they see the states and the Muslims and the relationship between them both. As a second part, we have the society and Muslims. So how is the society inside the state reacting to Muslims, and what is radical about the content about? So the content always describes something of the topic. Then we have Salafists and Muslims. It has to be said that in Germany and France, all of the content has a relation to Salafism, Islam. So the Salafis and Muslims is describing what is the connection between the small group of Salafis and the bigger, wider population of the Muslim community. So how are they reacting to each other? Then we have the topic believers and non-believers. That is really similar to the society and Muslims, but believers and non-believers are describing how Salafis are seeing how Muslims should react to believers, so other Muslims, and to non-believers, and how should they behave inside the society and react to each other. Then we have harm against Muslims all over the world. This topic fits really good to the content we find in Italy and Spain as well. It is a really important thing. Of course, it has not something to do so much inside the society of the country, but it is an important topic as well. It shows often how a picture is drawn between a victim, that's the Muslims all over the world, and an aggressor, that is often the foreign politics also from democratic countries. And the content was not chosen because harm was described. I don't think that that is something, why should we choose this content? It was chosen because it is a really radical part of it is in standing inside. Often it is like how do you call it? A statement where it is really clear who is the oppressor and who's the victim. And it's really like I will show you some examples. I think after that we can understand a bit better why content was chosen here. And then violent propaganda, as I said inside the main introduction, violent propaganda is watched separately from all other parts. That's why it is counted here yellow. Because violent propaganda, that was our task, what we wanted to search in the beginning, can be only found in 3 channels we found. And all of these 3 channels we found inside Telegram channels, 3 channels inside Telegram, and all in German-speaking language. I have also some example I'd like to show you what is this about. But as you can see, all the others in blue, all the topics are radical or are considered as radical, but it is not violence inside of it. Basically, most of the channels we got all the information out, most of them were standing strictly against violence, even if the content was considered sometimes as radical. This is not the case in these 3 Telegram channels over here in the violent propaganda. That is really clear. There's no doubt that this is like supporting global jihad and violence against also innocent people. So I like to show you some of the graphics. Of course, I don't want to go too much in detail. I just want to show you that how we separated the content, that we try to find an order how to interpret later on all the structure. And we put out some of the examples to show how this argument is made of. And you can find, as I said, all the graphics inside the long version of the report, and also explanations in text a bit more deeper. But the topic, the state against Muslims, what you can find here in the first part, and all of the content I will show you here are part of Germany and France. So the first part is actually separating really strictly. That's the line you can find between these two groups. Between the state, is seen as a democratic system, as the present system, seen as imperfection, and as a separation from the goal that should be the caliphate after the Quran and the Sunnah. And that is not present, but seen as perfection and a unit. As you can see, there are different parts how the content is describing these two systems. In the first part, the state, the system is described as the right to vote, participation through the votes, parties, representatives. That is all seen inside the eyes of the content as something bad. Muslims should not participate. Muslims should separate themselves from these things because they are not part of Islam. Laws, all the laws in the radical part of the content is seen as made by humans, so not God laws, and therefore it should not be followed. There's not like a strict thing that they say you shouldn't follow, but it was really made clear that these laws are from humans and therefore are not, that Muslims should not prefer to follow them. They should go back to Quran and Sunnah and follow that. Also here we have the freedom of speech and press. That's also something what is not appreciated by most of the authors of the content. And the perfection seen in the caliphate is represented by a caliph, a head of the state, so only one person, really different to the democratic system. And this head of the state is controlling basically all behalf, and the people always describe it as something Muslims should support, because then there's no fights inside the system. And all laws are not made by humans, laws are made by the Sharia, so the law is taken out of the Quran and the Sunnah. And you can see here the examples. The blue ones are chosen for France, and the yellow orange one is from Germany. So you can see the separation between both. And yeah, I don't want to how do you call it, to speak all about the different examples, but I think it makes it really clear that this systems, or the separation between the both systems, is described really good. And for people who read the content, it is really difficult actually to, when you read all the content, it's really difficult to see yourself inside the democratic system as part of the system or do something inside the system. No, it's something you should overcome and something you should leave behind you. And that is making it really difficult for young people, I think, to find themselves inside the democratic system and do something inside of it instead of rejecting it like most of the content is forcing people to do. So I continue to another topic I found, and that is the society in Muslims. Basically, the contents we found over here, or the examples we found, they're not all the examples we found, but some of them, are always showing that the society is something Muslims should be part of. The society is something opposing. So it's always seen that the Muslim community is one community by himself, and the society is an opposing community. And both are standing very much not next to each other, separated from each other. And the society always try to do, or to bring, or perverting the innocent Muslims, take them out inside their belief system and destroy everything Muslim stands for. That is what the radical content showed, what we gathered all together. So the Western lifestyle basically is always seen as something what is perverting the Muslims. Often when we are going through the contents, we found that it seems that many people, or the authors of the content, don't know lots of things about the society or don't see themselves as part of it, because it's always described as really negative form and nothing that they are at any case part of. Right? So Western society or Western lifestyle is often described for the relationship between woman and man. So man and woman are together, and the lifestyle of woman could pervert the man, and therefore the society is always doing that to Muslims. And music, especially music, is seen often as something from the Salafi understanding as a trigger to pervert Muslims, to bring Muslims away from the faith. It shows basically that, a separation can always be seen, but the separation made clear that for Muslims, it can be really difficult inside the content, or in that what the authors described, to make a new experience inside the society, what can destroy some of this really structural, really hard topics. So always when a young one is listening to content like this, it makes him really difficult to open himself up, to make a new experience inside the society. Society has always seen something, you should be separating yourself totally from it, and always be be afraid that you are not a real Muslim if you're not separating yourself totally. And that is seen in many of the examples. So the difficult part of this topic of the society and Muslims is made. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Is the difficult part of the society and Muslims always that the young people should separating themselves totally, and the other parts of society is something really bad. And that you can see in all of the examples we gathered around the different topics over here. Yeah, so I mean, for those who are interested, you can watch the different examples, but I like to continue because I think you can find most of them inside the long part of the report as well. And that is another topic we found is Salafists and Muslims. So how are the Salafists describe themselves inside the Muslim community? And this is like a graphic we created to show a bit. And we separated it into 4 different pieces. So on the bottom or on the top left part is the first part, and it goes on the top right part is the second, and it's divided into 4 parts. And all this picture is showing something how the Salafis are seeing Muslims, or the majority of the Muslims. So in the upper left part, you can see this small, really dark green circle. That is the Salafi group by themselves. And they are seeing themselves as part of perfection. So how people should react inside, or how humans should behave. And then the majority of Muslims inside Europe, that's the big circle here in the lighter green, also in the upper left part. That is showing the majority of the Muslims that in the eyes of the small Salafist group is going every time a bit more away from the true living, and that is what they self-present. So what they want to do is with the content and the post they create, they want to gather most of the young people. They say to the young Muslims, they are living a false life or something what is not accepted in Islam on their belief of Islam, and want to move them out of the majority of the people more and more to themselves, right? So that's why they are going to the social media platforms and spreading out content to influence young people and to make them sure, okay, you have to decide if you want to be Muslim, you have to come closer to our understanding of Islam, and that is the Salafi understanding, of course. And for young people, it is not so easy sometimes to see if that what they describe is part of Islam or is part of a Salafi understanding of Islam. And that is really hard if you go through the content. It's often really hard to see the differences. Every content we gathered in France and Germany has screenshots. So for those who are interested to see some examples, to have a better understanding about the examples of the screenshots, we can send it to you as well, that you can see by yourself how you would interpret it. So that is the relationship, what is described here. Then on the upper right part, this dark part of it, so the dark blue part, that is the society in France and Germany. What is always described as something what influenced the bigger majority of the Muslims. And the goal of the Salafis is to separate both of them as far as possible. And as you can see inside the graphic we draw, they are really close together. And that is how most of the content was seeing themselves. So the majority of Muslims is getting connected to the society, or is part of the society, and that is something the Salafis are not accepting in this part. So they see, no, they are too close to each other, they should separate themselves a bit more. On the bottom of the graphic, on the 2 parts on the bottom of the graphics, you can see something what is not part of the system of the content, something Salafis are standing up against totally, that are moderate preachers. So even Salafi preachers who have the same interest and also the same knowledge from that part, who are described over here, they are seen as something really bad, because moderate preachers, or people who are saying, as an example, Muslims should be part of the society, or should do something, or should interact with other people, that is considered as a moderate preacher. And therefore, the content is really harsh and really attacking moderate preachers, and that can be anyone, even Salafi preachers who are doing anything what would bring people together from believers, non-believers, Christians, Muslims. Everybody who's doing that is described as moderate preachers and is attacked online, actually, to say, look, don't listen to these people, they are your enemy, they are doing wrong to you. And yeah, that is described here on the bottom left side. On the bottom right side, you can see the Shias and really light blue color circle. And the Shias, of course, there's always a separation between Sunni and Shias. It is mentioned here because we found some posts regarding Shias who can be really considered as radical. And that's why there's something seen really negative and something Muslims should fight against. And cults. I wrote down cults and not Sufis as an example, but part of Islam. I wrote cults because everything what is a bit unknown or not seen as something what the Salafis are considered as Islam, anything what can be described as innovation as an example, so something what is unknown to them or not describable for them, is seen as cult and not as real Muslims as themselves. So they want the majority of Muslims also to separate themselves from people of other beliefs, even if they are Muslims. They want to separate them because they are defining for the young people what is Islam, what are Muslims, what is this and what is that, and therefore they separate themselves really clear from other people. I mean, if you have questions to the graphics, I know it's an interpretation or a way of interpretation from us, but the graphic was designed after we watched all the content to see if we can make one picture what is describing Salafists and the relation between Salafists and Muslims. And as you can see, it is a relation with lots of separation between different groups. And I hope with this graphic you have an idea on what really the goal of the content is. The goal is to influence the majority of young people, drive them to their definition and understanding of a separate system between the society and Muslims, and to drive them into different perspectives. And on the way to doing that, you separate the young people from people of other beliefs. You're separating themselves from people, Muslims, who are making an alternative. Or you separate them also from Muslims who are thinking just, or are how do you call it, are living Islam like they are, and this is always accepted, but not in the Salafi understanding of Islam. Yeah. So in the next parts, you can see there are some examples. As I said, I don't think it makes sense to read all of you, but every part of the graphic is described in the next parts with examples to have an understanding why we think so. And here you can see that is like describing how the Salafis are drawing the young people towards them. Example could be the reason is that there are a lot of innovation committed by Muslims, even those who follow a madhab. So that's like a law school. That's why we want to go back to the basic. So they are seeing themselves as the only one with the truth of the belief, and the majority are going back by innovation. So they want to get them back inside it. So, or another example from France could be authentic Islam, unlike the sects, that is their definition what sects are, which brought back innovation, etc. The Salafis then fight the shirk and the innovation, so the religious innovation, everything what is new and not seen in the Salafi understanding as part of Islam, Islam without addition or reduction. Yeah? So all these examples show how they want to draw a minority of the Muslim people into their belief system, what they think is right in Islam. Then here, that is an example with all the different answers we found describing that the majority of Muslims is too strong connected to society and they should separate themselves even more. Yeah? And that is described in many different examples. An example here is sometimes the music coming back after the tombs inside the mosques, the innovations and the songs music inside the mosques of homosexuals, the ban of wearing the full niqab inside the mosque in Cannes. It's sometimes difficult to understand all the examples, I admit, because they are a bit sometimes out of context. That is difficult. But inside this example, there was a young woman who was criticizing that a mosque in Cannes was not allowing people to fully cover their face, right? So they overreacting it and putting it together with, oh, look, people are losing their faith because they are perverted by the society, and therefore we have to draw them back to our understanding. Women have to be full covered. There's no how do you call it? No other way to see it as their understanding that you can find in most of the examples. That's some examples we take out that describes moderate preachers, often also Salafists, but just saying something else. As an example we can find here, instead of calling on Muslims in your mosque to go to vote and participate in the unjust and idolatrous system, call on Muslims to follow the Sunnah and non-Muslims to enter Islam. Right? So there are many occasions it was like this, that there was a post of a news page where the post was, or the news page was informing that, as an example, that a different imam was telling young people to be part of the society or do something, and then most of the content found here is like regarding this content and attacking moderate preachers who are doing something else, or who are just working together with people with other faith, could be something what is also not really accepted by most of the content. Then here you can see also how Shias are seen. That's why we put them out. It is not because it's about the separation. That is, we admit that there is a separation between Shias and Sunnis. There could be, but as you can see here, Shias are not our brothers. They are Satan's brothers, or the perversion of the Shias. Men can have sexual pleasure with a child and 10 age of a baby. And as you can see, that is the part why we took content out. And all the other parts you can see are related most of the times against cults and sects, seen most of the times as Sufis and people who are not part of the Salafi understanding of Islam. Yeah. So on the next topic, we are describing believers and non-believers. And here we also have like a graphic, what we designed after we watched all the content regarding it. And here you can see it as an example, step 1. All the content is like separating into two opposing groups. So they are Muslims and they are Kafirs, believers as Muslims and Kafirs as non-believers. In the second part, the content is describing, or content we found is describing how these two groups should be totally separated from each other. So there's no point of meeting. The only point of meeting is described as, that is not really existing. There's no meeting point inside it. And then on the third step, you can see how these points are strictly separated from each other. And then there are only two ways of negotiation, and that I can show you. This one, that is the one I described here. And then the two ways of negotiation is often just seen as an enemy in war times, or another way of negotiation through the two groups can be converting. And I think it is interesting to see that when you read through all of the content, and there's lots of things we found, and when you read through all of it, you can see that the definition of words is always different between the believer who wrote the content and our beliefs, how we think things are happening, or my believers, or a group who analyzed it as well. We spoke about all the content. It was clear that it was sometimes difficult to understand because they are using words and the words is different defined as we used to be it. And when we watch it, we can see that there can be only two negotiations between a Muslim and a non-believer in the eyes of our content we found. The first one is that the non-believer is converting to Islam and therefore there's no separation. And on the other hand, the other negotiation is that the non-believer tries to convert the Muslim into a non-believer, and then there's also no. So the only way of negotiation is actually to take over the other part, and that shows. So in their eyes, it's always a situation where they can get taken over by the other part, or they could take over the other part by converting them. So that is the way of negotiation. So there is no negotiation by living together. So one of these two possibilities is happening. So they can't have their belief because they are thinking other people are stealing their belief by converting them into non-believers. And on the other way around, it can be as well. So that's the basically problematic between the believers and non-believers in this eyes, because the biggest problematic is there is no other meeting point than that. One meeting point is I convert the other one, or the other one is converting me. And that is really, really hard because, of course, you don't want to trust people who want to convert you into their beliefs. And the other one, but can also don't trust you because you try to convert him as well. So that is a really difficult negotiation platform or space they open up, because it always is fear but from yourself that you lose something you are. And from the other side is always fear that the other one tries to convert you into his habits. So that describes really good the strict separation between both. Now we come to the topic called harm against Muslims. And that is basically foreign politics, or it fits really good to the examples we find in Italy and Spain as well. And we choose parts of this content. We are not strictly searching for the content. It was just found by many occasions. I think when we would search for it, we would find even more, because the foreign politics or war against terror, that are all topics were seen or highly discussed. It is chosen here not because it's, of course, you can see critical about the foreign politics of democracies, definitely. All the wars going on in Muslim countries, there are lots of critics about that. And that is, of course, totally acceptable. We just choose the content when we can see that that it is really hard described way how to see it, and it is not like, it's really like, you are all this and we are all victim, you are all enemy. That is why we choose it. And most of the posts are doing something, and that's why we did this graphic. So the author of the post tried to address Muslims for doing nothing. Yeah. So he's opening up a question of guilt. So he's showing, as an example, a scene of Libya, how innocent Muslims are killed, right, by soldiers, by people democracy sent as soldiers, or by bombings. And then he addresses the Muslims for doing nothing, right? You are sitting inside France or Germany, you are doing nothing. So you are guilt for that because you don't do something about it. So the author of the post, most of the time wants to inform about the harm, what is happening against Muslims, but he also wants to show that there are crimes against Muslims, right? And that the rest of democracies are doing nothing against it, or even supporting the aggressor, or are the aggressor by themselves. Yeah? So it has difference. So the viewer of the post, when he's a Muslim, he's watching it and thinks like, oh, I did nothing to help innocent people. And the aggressor is inside the society, or is the state where I'm living in. So that is opening a difficult part, because the viewer has the feeling that he don't do anything, he's guilty to do that. And I think in some cases it can like let people feel, oh, I can do something. How can I do something? Maybe I can go there to do something, right? So that is a thing, a possibility of way to see it. And so it opens up the question in the eyes of the viewer: what can I do to help this innocent Muslims inside the war? And in some cases, that was also written in the desk analysis, in some cases, that there are people who think that that can be a reason why young people were going, because maybe they had a tension what was not bad, they want to help people, but of course they were attracted by the wrong people to do it. And that is why many people, young people, left Europe. And that is one of the things we find in the literature inside the desk analysis as well. So I give you some examples, I think, to have a better understanding. And I made some screenshots. And as I said, every post we see, or I described, we have screenshots about it as well. I think it was just easier to give a translation, because you don't have to, I don't have to translate everything. But here on the left side, that was a picture found in Instagram. Yeah? Most of the content in France and Germany are out of two platforms, actually. In France, it was Twitter, right? Basically all Twitter. In Germany, you can't find much on Twitter. It was most of the time Telegram, we found, but also some Instagram, some YouTube. So in Germany, it was more divided. But in France, it was basically only Twitter, some YouTube, really little. So here on the left side, you can see the left part, sorry, I don't want. On the left part of the screenshot, you can see 4 different situations, what describes where Muslims are attacked, right? So in the upper left one, you can see the Uyghurs in China. I'm not sure if you are aware, but that is something what is basically on every week in the news, that China is oppressing Muslims there. And it says in German written, dear world, or do you know how it is to have fear? Uiguren, right? So the Uyghurs know how it is. On the right side, you can see Syria. On the bottom left, you can see Palestine. On the bottom right, you can see Kashmir. So all are places where Muslims are harmed. But the picture, what is drawn is, dear world, you don't see what is happening there. So why you don't do something against this? Nobody is doing anything against it. Here on the next one, that is from Twitter, from France. See, after years of discrimination, the long-awaited genocide of Muslim Indians can finally begin. The greatest democracy in the world, the India of Modi, the brother of Macron, remember the Hindu terrorism admiring Israel. This is also a conflict inside India and Modi about Hindu nationalism. And it can be discussed. The only thing is it is really strict, like, look, Macron is in this example, he's liking that it's happening to Muslims. He's helping basically as a brother of the head of the state to do something like this. And to speak about a genocide is also something, a comparison where it's difficult to draw or to compare it. But that is how many posts we found are similar like this. Or here on the right side, you can see a video. I'm afraid I can't like show it to you, but the video is showing two army soldiers who are shooting at an innocent man lying on the ground. It's sometimes difficult. We often found videos and pictures, and I was not sure if it was really from there or if it was from there, but it was also difficult in social media to do that, because you don't know actually what is the scene about. Is it authentic? Is it not? But here you can see Egypt. Here's a small example of what has made the military junta since the putsch in 2013 to empty the Sinai and its inhabitants and the request of Israel. It is the regime which is France's ally and which has become the first importer of French weapons. Right? So there is made a clear connection between the French government and the killing, what is found inside the video. So it's also, when you read something like this, you can feel like, oh, look, the whole world is against the people of my religion. And I'm living in a country who is in favor of the harm and the attack against my brothers or innocent brothers and sisters. So what can I now do? Should I just wait, do nothing? So it always attracts the viewer to understand who's the enemy, what am myself, what I doing, what am I doing by myself? And you feel guilt sometimes, right? But it's also known, as you can see in these examples, it is the picture of it is always drawn in the eyes of the authors, and that can be, as an example, in the second one can be, look, Macron likes how Muslims are treated here, or here, the killing of the innocent from the two army soldiers, France allies, so France is in favor of it, right? They're doing nothing against it. Here on the right side, you can see that was found on German website on Telegram, this crazy world saying, and it is comparing what is happening in Gaza and what happens in Warsaw from the Nazi times in 1943. So it is bringing together these two things, as you can compare it totally together, right? So the Israel soldiers, they will kill everyone like the Nazis did in Warsaw. Yeah, there are comparisons where I think it opens up questions about, and I think it is also standing inside the guidelines, is about political education, right? To understand the definitions of conflicts, to understand what was happening there, what is happening there, to don't believe, pictures like this who are just like compare things and you think, oh yeah, that could be because I read something about it in social media. It's really easy that there is a connection. But I'm pretty sure most of historians would not see a connection like it is described here, really simplistic of this conflict. Yeah. Here you can see on the next one that is violent propaganda. This topic, as I said, it is separated to all other topics, right? I want to separate it because it's only it is from 3 different channels we found. And as I said, all other channels were basically, even if you can see, there are radical parts of it, but they are not saying we are supporting IS, right? Or we are supporting to go to war. That is not standing there, basically. But in violent propaganda, it stands there, and there's no two ways to understand this content. It's all found on Telegram. And yeah, it's really easy to see what it is about. That's why I want to see it as separately, because that is not much content be found. It's just out of 3 channels. And here it is really clear that the author of the post is also, there's always a connection between the author of the post, what he wants the viewer to see, how the viewer is feeling, what the author wants to show. So the content gives the viewer the choice, while the author is giving the picture of hero and loser as an example. And that is made here. So the first channel we found on Telegram, Violent Propaganda, is a supporter channel. No, that's just my impression after you watch like hundreds of content of him. He's a male, I would say. He's living in Germany. He is definitely a supporter of IS and of the violence. That is definitely, I can say something about him. And he always creates inside his posts, you can find here in blue. I know that's not France or Germany, but I choose blue just because you can see it a bit better. So all of these posts are doing that. So the author, this guy, is introducing always you into a position where you can choose between 2 pictures. You can be a good Muslim, caring about your sisters and brothers, about people you love and should protect. Or you can be a loser, somebody who in the other part and harm to against Muslims all over the world is seen as somebody who's doing nothing to protect the people you like or to protect innocent people. So this picture, the author of the post is drawing, he leaves you with this picture with a choice between both of them. And the viewer has to choose, but of course the viewer wanted to choose what he prepared the viewer to see. So he likes, of course, to see, he now creates a picture of a hero and a picture of the loser. And so the viewer basically, when he wants to be the hero, he has to be the hero the author of the post is describing, right? So that is really difficult, because it's not like this guy is definitely not dumb. And I think that is the most dangerous part of the things I personally watched, because it is bringing together lots of different problematics inside the society, discrimination experience inside the society. And he knows a lot, has a good knowledge about this. So it is really near to people who live in Germany to understand, wow, this is not fair, this is not good, what happened here. But the connection to go from this spot to jihadi Islam or support of terror attacks, that is something the author is standing between these 2 things and is trying to connecting something what is seen as not good, as violent, as a discrimination experience, and to connect it to, oh no, believe me, that is something you have to stand up against. And how do you stand up against? I will introduce you to a form you can do it. And that is basically supporting violence, right? And that you can see in many of these posts. And it was interesting to find this channel, because in the first beginning, you can see it was like many of the other channels, right? It was really hard to find anything what is radical about it, right? It was introducing lots of Quran interpretations, lots of known Salafi scholars, right? I am not agreeing to some of the standpoints, definitely, but it's not considered for me as radical. And then suddenly you can see, oh, wow, this is more. And then you go back and you can find, like, in the end of 2019 what he wrote. And then you can see that there was a connection inside this channel. That's why I found it the most interested channel, what we found, because it was showing the connection between them both. And yeah, I don't want to read all the examples, but please do so. And yeah, it's definitely I think if you want to understand, or if somebody wants to understand how to make a connection like this channel definitely gives lots of content and lots of screenshots we took out, what it can describe young people pretty good and give them examples. Look, these are examples. What do you think about it? That would be an interesting question I would like to ask. What do you think about this guy, or who is this guy? Can you describe something about the author? Can you describe something as a viewer, what you feel about it? Are you suspicious? What do you think? Is he thinking, feeling? There are definitely many parts I think you can take out of this supported channel, definitely. That is the channel I was speaking about. I was not how do you call it? In the other occasion, on the other examples, I blacked the channel, but I think in this time it is okay for us to see it. And there's this one example I like to show you, and you can find many hundreds of it like this. And you can see there's two pictures here on the Telegram channel, and on the left picture it said, okay, on the top it stands in German written language, it is time to remember something. It is time to change things, right? And then you can find this picture, what is made here. And the picture on the left side shows the smoking, or the shisha smoking guy, right? And the text is saying, this is Ahmed, right? Ahmed is not praying. Ahmed takes from his mother and from his father 10 euros to go to the shisha bar, right? So Ahmed is not praying, he's not a good Muslim, basically that is what it is said, and he takes the money of his parents to go to go to his shisha bar is also something what is seen as, look, this guy is not any following rules. On the right side, you can see this guy in an army dress, right? Turban, right? And here the text is saying, that is Umar. Umar is like worrying about the Muslims worldwide, everywhere where they are. But from Ahmed, so from the guy from the shisha bar, and from his own family, he's criticized for that. I mean, most parents, or when you read through the desk analysis and also lots of the literature review we found, when you read through it, you'll realize also how parents are reacting when their children go to Syria, as an example, in 2014, 2015. That was the time where lots of violent content was spread out into the internet. And you can see how parents are like trying to get their children back to don't leave, right? So they're calling sometimes the police. The police wasn't that time not always acting because the law says you can't hold somebody back, right? And so they go. And you can see that also parents or people who love these people and don't want them to go to fight for ISIS, as an example. So they are criticizing them. And this post made clear, hey, when you are criticized, you are right. So when your parents or family members are saying, don't do that, that is not the right thing to do, you can be sure you're on the right side. So it is a tryst between definition of words and understanding. So when I would like to go, as an example, and somebody would tell me, stay, that is not something good, and I would say, yeah, look, this post was informing me about that these guys were not serious, want to take me back. And we can find lots of examples inside the content what are looking like this, pictures like this. And there's also arena comparing different characters, groups, who's a hero, who's a loser, who's standing beside it, just watching, who's actor, who's fighter, who's, all these separations are made really clear with posts, pictures, videos. And that is definitely something I think could be a trap for young people who are not really educated what it is about, right? That is definitely one of the most interested channels, my personal view. Then I said there are 3 channels. So this is the supporter channel, basically. Then the second channel, that is a fighter channel. It's like the people who are using the channel, and they are all living in the moment in Syria. All of the content is from 2020. So this part of the channel, they are from a terror organization fighting in Idlib in favor of the Turkish side right now against Bashar al-Assad. And it's in war times, it's war material, definitely. All the videos are war material. But often the channel use words like brothers and is speaking directly to young people in Germany. Look, brothers, we are fighting for the Muslims, we are fighting for innocent people. And how can you support us? Sometimes the channel says, okay, you can give us money through Bitcoin, or makes jokes about that the national security is behind them. And the videos basically are really brutal. So I don't want to show also the videos. I just want to show you here an example what is happening as in this video. It's like a quote from the Quran. Often quotes are taken inside content. What is, I think, shouldn't do that, because it is giving, okay, this quotation is meaning exactly that. It's not. So the guy comes inside into the room. There's somebody lying there. Maybe you can see that he's lying there, and he's lying, basically relaxing, and he should be a soldier from Bashar al-Assad. He's lying there. Then the guy comes in, he gets up. So he's grabbing something and gets shot. Really brutal, actually. It is part of the war, but it is like totally taking out. There's no understanding who the victim is. Demoralized. He's satanized. He's something what he was innocent in this part. He was totally innocent, and he got shot. You know? Innocent, he can't defend himself. It was just they come in and shoot him, and then in other parts of the channels they are like speaking really. You can see how they speak like, look what we did to this to this people. They are not worthy. They are totally. There's lots of hate part inside, and the channel is speaking often to young German people and. Are often addressed directly. As an example here, it is like brothers and sisters, siblings, right? Siblings, our siblings are doing that. So, you know, it's the connection between the viewer and the guys inside the content. Here, that is the third channel we found. As you can see, they are doing that in many, many different languages. That is not German at all. The video is from the 17th of January 2015. It was not standing by, but from the video you can see that is the video from Charlie Hebdo, 2015. That is this Citroen, and here's like this white truck standing there. I watched the video on YouTube. That is happening often with content. You can use like photo founders and online to put photos in to see if there's a connection, because sometimes I also don't understand where it was from, but it is from Paris, Charlie Hebdo terror attacks. And as you can see here, hearts, right? It's something like they are like making songs about it here on this channel, or often like, yeah, they are putting it out and glorifying it. It's like it's creepy. It's the totally opposite most of the society and the people are feeling, and most of the Muslims are feeling when they see terror attacks like this. But on this channel, they are like singing in favor of them and making them in a whole another spotlight. Yeah, I hope I could make it clear that this is the content I think is really really dangerous, definitely. And this content was really difficult to find. And most of the other channels, the things what I described before, yeah, there are radical parts of it. Yeah, I also think that young people should be careful and learn something and to understand what it is about, and it can lead to radicalization, definitely. But this is really another part. This is really I never had the feeling I have to separate between it was violent propaganda and the other ones. It was sometimes, you know, we were sitting sometimes with 3 people together. That one was saying, no, that is not radical because you can ask it, and the other one was saying, oh yeah, but you can see it as this. And we learned a lot in this process when we spoke about the content, but it was always difficult because to understand, okay, is that really radical? When that is radical, then what is about this? What is about the right wing there? And is that allowed and what is not allowed? And who are we who judge it? But this is definitely not the case for this content, because this content don't make any, there is no thinking about it. It was really clear who it was after you watched the channels through. Yeah, so yeah, that's just, I want to make it clear that there's a separation between the contents we found. Yeah, so now I want to speak shortly. I hope I'm not, yeah, I have to. I want to speak shortly about the questionnaire. I just took some questions out. In total, we had 113 questionnaires answered, I'm sorry. All the questionnaires were answered were, first of the time, it can be CSOs we asked, or it can be professionals. So social workers and professionals who are working in our different areas. And we had one question. We also had the questions, what is the name of your organization in the beginning, if you remember, but some people don't answer it. So we can separate it by, or we can separate all the answers by language what was chosen. So we can then see what answers are important for your organization inside your district. So all Spanish, as an example, this is clear that is all answers from Eduardo, and is all around the area around Alicante. So these are 35. Then we had Italy, that's all around Rome from Programma Integra. Then we had Germany, that's all from Berlin, 25. And then we had French, only 14. It can be from Strasbourg or from Nizza. And English 4, so 4 choose to the English. And I always write them separately because, as I said, I can't put them together to the other languages, yeah, because I'm not sure who they are, but I still used the answers to put them together. Then I had I had to find like, or interpret the data we found. So I made like some tables, of course, to get the results together. And there was always an opportunity to say yes or no, so a yes or no answer. So what I wanted to do here basically is to get all the answer possibilities here. That is standing here in the table on the top. Yeah. So as an example here, the question was, what problems do young people have to face job possibilities? We wanted to know if job possibility as an example is a problem, but also we want to know, is a problem for young people in your area have to face as low income jobs, or spaces for social aggression, or high apartment rents, social exclusion, drug abuse, religious radicalization, right? So we, that are all the answer possibilities. And here you can see the language where the questionnaire was answered on the left side: Spanish, Italian, German, French, English. And I also want, because I wanted when people look like immediately on it, to see which are really like standing out answers. As an example here in Spain was really clear around Alicante, 24 people. I don't include the answers who are not answering the questions, so I put them out. So 80% of answers we have are seeing job possibility as one of the main problems young people have to face. But in German, in Berlin, only 5 answers were regarding this topic. So that is showing also that a tackle plan or ideas how to face the problem of religious radicalization can be separated in the countries, because different problems can be the origin of radicalization or possible radicalization. And then in Italy, as an example, we can also see a really high number, 26 answers, around 90% seeing job possibility as a problem, and in French as well. So that is something what is coming together, exception Germany. There we don't have the young people don't, or in the beliefs of the social worker professionals and CSOs, and what are chosen by us regarding the topic, this is not important. So, and then on the next, low income jobs as an example are really important in Spain and Italy as well. And you can see spaces for social aggression. Nobody thinks that is something young people have to face, but in Italy, as an example, they say, yeah, in Rome, that is the case. And that is how you can read the tables I wrote. And in the short version, I did it a bit better because I compromised all the answers. I think it's better to read. But in a long version, you can see all the questions. So I took this question because I think it is important to understand what are young people facing inside the country. And as you can see, you can read out for your organization what is important, what are things what are important to see. And if you go here to the right part of it, or when you see to the right, see a religious radication as a struggle young people must face in total, you can see that in Alicante and in Rome, basically all of the professionals were saying, oh no, that is not something young people have to face in their eyes. Yeah? And it is giving also some ideas after, after our months of search, and we have all the results, and now I'm explaining and saying, okay, in Spain and Italy we don't find so much, but yeah, look, that is also the experience what the professionals had in this country. And here you can see in France and Germany, this is not the case, right? So that was kind of interesting to look at the questionnaire to see where are the fitting points, definitely. Then we had a question, what kind of causes do you see for the radicalization of young people? So I can separate the questionnaire into 3 different parts. One part was in general speaking about organizations and the problems young people have. Then the second part was more what kind or causes can radicalization of young people are. Yes, social exclusion, or we had social media education, human morality, and that was more on the radicalization by itself. Here you can see that social exclusion was something most of the professionals were seeing as a problem, right? And I saw that inside our radical content that most of the answers, or answers of the content we watched, is giving indications about the social exclusion of the people, right? Can be a discrimination experience. Sometimes we were thinking about that as well. Then social media education, look, this is not a popular answer, but in Germany, yes. And in Germany, we find also lots of content. So that is the interesting part to read it. So if you are interested, please watch and through the answers of the questionnaire. But I think it is always good for your organization to see what is your answers about. It not makes sense to summarize all the answers and the solutions, and then later find out, okay, that is definitely not an interesting part about my area or in the eyes of the professionals, and how we can work also together with the professionals and CSOs, because here you can see also what they believe in, and where maybe there are fitting points also between different projects. I think that was also an idea I had when I watched this. So here you can see what kind of causes social exclusion is definitely a spot where in total 65%, that is quite high, of professionals were seeing that as one of the cases why young Muslims are radicalizing themselves. Then, have you ever had experience with radical young Muslims in the past? You can see also here in Spain or in Italy, there was really little answer. So almost no experience with radical young Muslims. That is not the case in Germany and France, and that is fitting to our found content as well. Yeah, so this is the kind of things what I think is interesting to get out of the questionnaire. And yeah, I think I'm done for now. Thank you for your attention. And of course, if you have questions, then we can answer them. Yes, I can answer them to you. And also, if you have questions later, if you go through the reports, I think basically many of you did, then please don't be shy to ask my questions. Of course, I know it's always interpreting is always, as you can see, really, yeah, many people can interpret the data differently. But yeah, we try to do a good job. If you see things, what you like to do or change, please let us know. Thank you.